What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. When the Me Too movement started, I was one of those guys who was really happy about the movement, about bad men getting their just desserts and brave women coming forward and sharing their stories. I was also very careful sometimes, and I used to get in trouble for this because I wanted to. I wanted the stories that were unearthed to be true, so that men would be held accountable, and I also wanted the journalistic side of it to be ethical. And my guest today and I have been speaking. It's got to be for at least maybe a couple months almost now. And what we did is we kind of together, although I would never take any credit for the heavy lifting that this person has gone through, but together we decided that she decided that she wanted to come forward and talk about her experiences. And before we did that, she did all of these amazing, brave things in order for myself as a journalist to feel breaking a story like this. I wanted her to be as comfortable as possible, and I also wanted the other side to be reconciled, which is the journalistic side. And we waited until those steps were complete, and now she's here. So I know that a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about based on the stories that have come out on the KLondike Papers. So this story does circumnavigate around the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And here to talk to us today is one of the bravest women I think I know right now, and her name is Cheryl Hope. Cheryl, how you doing?
I'm okay.
The KLondike Papers, you're not in it. It has nothing. Your story has nothing to do with it, really. But the reason why this all came about between you and I was because of the KLondike Papers, and then my associations with specifically with Richard Marsh, who is an ex-member of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. I think maybe it would be best if we just sort of started from the very beginning. And if you could tell me, my understanding is that when you're a part of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, it means that you were born into it. That nobody gets tapped to come into the church. It's families and generation after generation. You're born into it. Can we start by you telling us what it's like to be in that community and what it was like to grow up in that community?
Well, for myself and for my particular family, we were the bottom of the totem pole. We never crawled out of it. We were subjected to whatever they felt was necessary. I think one of the biggest reasons I stayed in as long as I did is I felt the need to protect my dad. I felt the need to try and help him with how he was being treated. Growing up was horrible. That's all I can say. It was just horrible. I probably would have left a lot sooner than I did, but I stayed until I couldn't stay any longer.
I compare it to Scientology, but that comparison is I think is basically how I characterize that church based on how the church treats its members when they excommunicate or when they leave. But really, it seems more like not Amish, but the ladies are wearing bonnets and blouses and like long skirts and stuff like that, and it's a very patriarchal kind of society.
Yeah.
What is the role of women in the Plymouth Brethren?
To cook, clean, and produce babies.
That's it, eh?
And play the piano, play an instrument. But no, so if we kind of go into what made me leave, the very last final straw was we had been subjected to priestly visits after priestly visits after priestly visits. Any chance that they could give me... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, what's a priestly visit, just so we all can follow along?
So a priestly visit is when certain brothers that are kind of leading the locality that we're living in come and visit you. So we just kind of termed them priestly visits. And mine started very early on, probably 13. And then heavily just got increased more and more and more and more. But my dad was very, very targeted. He was very targeted. The final priestly visit that we had that made me realize that I needed to get out was we had been told that we were having a priestly visit before church, before a meeting. And they had come and gathered us. And we were sitting in the living room, and we were being challenged on a lot of things. My mom actually stood up and tried to challenge them. And in that process of her standing up, got us shut up. So shut up is kind of like the first level of being excommunicated. And they were very, very thorough with my dad on the importance of being the man of the house and the head of the household. And because my mom had stood up, that was premise for us being shut up. That devastated our family. I mean, we were all crying. It was one of those things that was just horrific to us. They ended up taking that back because if we were remorseful enough, they allowed us to go to meeting that night, but they had planned this before meeting, which normally they came after the meeting, but this one was before the meeting, and we had to walk into meeting, our family, with 4 priests. And of course, everybody would have known what had happened. And that next morning, the leader of the locality, who was an elderly gentleman who was supposed to be the lead of the locality, came to our house the next morning in tears and apologized for what had happened to us, and had said that his hands were tied. There was nothing more he could do for us. And it was in that moment. I decided to go. But for me, it wasn't running away from home. For me, it was, I was leaving the planet. I was done. I had gone through, at that point, 16 years, and 12, 13 of those years were hell.
I just want to, I want to point something out for our audience. You today, when I called you after you had gone to this appointment that you went to today, you had told me that it was basically the hardest thing that you have done since you left the church. And that was you went to the police to file a police report. Listen, you've been through a lot, not just in your life, but today even. You told me that the police were very thorough, very, very
Today was
detailed.
the hardest day I've ever lived. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 hours. Today was the hardest day. Yeah. You
can spare us whatever details you want to spare us, but can you tell us basically like a sort of skeletal idea of what it is that you went through with the church, like why, basically the reason why we're having this conversation, and you can be as non-specific as you want to be because you've been through enough today already. So basically, if you want, I can lead you along. It's up to you.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I just say, first of all, my whole reason for doing this is I don't have a vendetta against the church. I don't. I mean, I've done years and years and years of therapy. My issue is that this certain man has had complaints against him over and over and over that I've heard from other people. It's been taken, some to police, some back, and they were supposed to deal with it. And so I guess my biggest thing is I'm coming forward because I have nieces and nephews in there. And I met a lady through this who had this happen with the same perpetrator 4 years ago. And she's not even a part of the Brethren, but she worked in close proximity to where he was. And she told me stories of other Brethren females that were working there and what was happening. And I'm like, my nieces are in there and they're close to the ages that could be going and working at this place of business. And that destroyed me. I've been looking for a way to kind of come out and find a way to tell my story. It's not your typical sexual abuse story. It's more in depth than that. And so I kind of just was trying to find ways that I could kind of weave in and be able to know that I was supported and know that I had a kind of a door open to be able to come in and tell my story, to bring the results that I want to bring. This is not just for me. This isn't for me. This is for my nieces and nephews that are still in there. This is for all the people who have shared their stories for me through this, that are too scared to come forward. I don't really have a choice in coming forward. I had to come forward. I didn't have a choice. I had to come forward. This has to stop. This has to stop somewhere. And so for me, it was about trying to find another set of big girl panties to put on that I used to leave the cult with to do this. I have to say that this is much harder than the day I left home. So the reason why that I am here, and to explain my story is, I was very young. I was very young when I was placed in I'm going to say his name, Ellen Drever's home. I was very young. And so my dad was in a really bad car accident when I was just over 2.5. Prior to that, my brother had been born when I was 2. He had gone through some health issues. My dad it was a serious accident. They didn't think he was going to make it. And it's not uncommon for families to just be placed in other homes. They just get picked up and get placed in other homes. The first night I was there, the very first night, he helped himself. I'll never forget him unzipping my sleeper. I remember the sleeper I had, and it just snowballed from there. There's just one thing after another after another. To give you kind of context, I mean, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get into this today, just because I had to do it for 4 hours earlier today. He had a toolbox, and he had a toolbox that he used to fix children. He had used little girls. It was his job to fix little girls. And he made me believe that through and through, that I need to be fixed in any kind of way. If I cried, I had to be fixed. If I had a stomach ache, I had to be fixed. If I showed any kind of anything that a little child would show, I had to be fixed. And the toolbox came out. He didn't just stop there. He took me to other places. He took me to other people. It's so hard to talk about. He just.
Go ahead.
It's just. He's a very sick man. He's a very sick man. It's not your normal. I mean, I guess I don't know what a normal sexual abuse case is, but he was a very sick man, and he made me believe that everything I did, I was doing to help my father. And he grilled that into me that I needed to help my dad, and that anything that I was doing like this, I was helping my dad. And so as a little girl, I believed that. I'll give you an example of
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead.
I was just like, one of the things he did in his toolbox was he had candy in there, and if things hurt me, I had to eat a Smartie. That was one of the biggest things that he had started with. He would dip his tongue in his alcohol drinks and make me suck it off. He syringed me things that made me sleepy. He would ask me if I was sleepy yet. And he held no, I can talk from a 47-year-old now. He held no concept of an emotional attachment to somebody, right? I felt just owned by him. To me, I was his. He came home one day, he was frustrated, and he threw his wife's bra on me and told me one day I would feel it out, and that he had to get me ready for a husband. and literally sat there and he raped me and then turned around and just left me. I remember going to the bathroom after that. I had to clean myself up. There was nobody there to help me. And like,
how old were you?
I would have been probably 3 years old and trying to process this. He took me to this, what I know now it was a mobile home. And these men came there and they offered me a candy that looked kind of like a piece of sugar. And I took it. It made my mouth immediately dry. And I just remember that I couldn't swallow properly. And then I couldn't swallow my own saliva. And these men that came looked very much like Hutterites. I'm not going to claim they were Hutterites, but they looked 90% Hutterites. And they spoke a different language. And they put me face down on a table on a soft blanket. And all I remember that whole time is how much it hurt while I had to stare at a green and clear ashtray and I couldn't swallow. I just felt the drool drooling down me. It was hard. It's hard. A lot of this stuff is it's hard to put into context, into words, how confused I was with having men enjoy you at the same time that you're incapacitated. And that as a little girl, I had like no fucking clue how to help myself. Like I couldn't do it. The second time that I was taken to that mobile home, it was just 3 of them. And I was placed, I could literally draw the inside of this house. Most of the houses that I was in, I know exactly all the little quirks and twerks inside them. This time that he brought these just 3 men over, I was in one of the bedrooms, and the first guy sat there and literally stimulated me for what seemed like hours, literally hours. That's all he did. Someone knocked on the door and told him to hurry up. The thing that I remembered about this one specific gentleman that has always stood in my mind is his smell. So he had just this most awful smell to him. And for me, I couldn't place the smell. And I was trying to place the smell. Was this horse manure? Was this like horse poo? Was it pig poo? Was it cow poo? I was trying to think, like, what is this smell? And later on, I was taken out to the couch out there and I was propped up against Ellen while I was kind of like coming to. And I saw him smoking, which is, I had never seen him smoke before. And I realized what he was smoking was the same smell that this guy smelled like. And I mean, I know now at my age, that smell was pot, right? But back then I had never been introduced to anything like that. And it was literally that smell that just burns into my memory of what that room entailed.
The level of manipulation, I mean, this is all under beside or in front of the backdrop of a religious group, often probably used as a shield, right? The religious aspect of it all. Alan Drever, last name Drever, is the man, and he was an elder in the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Is that right?
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, is he an elder in the church?
So he's not a leading brother, but his wife, his wife is the brother of the main perpetrator that brainwashed me and that would take me on all my priestly visits, and the one that like hunted me down all the time. Even after I left, he did. They camped outside my fourplex. They followed me and my husband around everywhere we went. My husband got so frustrated one time in the mall that he turned around and went right up. I'm going to say his name, Morse Hope. He went right up behind Morse Hope and told him, like literally said, the devil's watching you. Because that's how they view people that you're married to, right? But so even though he wasn't an elder, he had someone, he was married to the sister of Morse, and Morse knew what was going on. Edna had him come over one time. after Ellen wouldn't quit leaving me alone, and there were some things that happened, and she got scared, and she called Morse to come over, and there was a huge fight. There was a huge thing, and Ellen literally would not come out of the room where he had me until there was a big crash, and then he went out. And like, Morse knew what was going on. And honestly, if I can put 2 and 2 together, and if I can say why I think I was so targeted to be kicked, I was drove out of that church. As soon as I started hitting an age where I was developing, where I was starting to get a little bit of a voice, where I was starting to kind of understand what was going on, and I really started rebelling, Morse got on board. Morse got on board, and he was, any chance he had in any family that he could gear up against either my mom, my dad, or me or my siblings, it was to get me out, and he got me out. So normally when someone leaves, parents come after their children. Priests come after those children. I had not one fucking person come after me. I left with a girl.
Yep, go ahead.
I left with a girl, and it was like the leading priest's granddaughter. And I sat in the basement of an apartment while her parents were outside, pleading for her to come back. And I sat there thinking, where are my parents? Not that I wanted to go back. I didn't want to go back. But it was just the sheer difference in what it was. And I was never, am I cutting the note?
Nope, you're good.
No. It was just such a real hard pill to swallow that nobody came after me. Never. Nobody came after me. Oh, these earbuds.
And we spoke earlier today, and we talked about that aspect a little bit, and it must have been so confusing because in a way they did you a favor, and it's almost the most psychologically confusing favor.
I get it. It's bittersweet. It is bittersweet. Yeah. I didn't want to go back, but it was hard. It was super, super hard that my parents, oh gosh, it's so hard. They just didn't care enough. I mean, it's been out 30 years, and it is probably the deepest wound I have that I still deal with. I still deal with it. I probably will always deal with it. Just because my whole family's in there. I'm the only sibling out. I'm sorry.
No, please. You don't have anything to apologize for. Please.
It was hard. It's just hard. It's hard. It's hard when this all gets brought up. And it's one of the reasons why I've waited 30 years to bloody do this. I think I've needed 30 years of therapy to be able to do it. It just, there's a lot of things that just really stick with you that I don't know if you ever get over. And a lot of people ask why I never kept in contact with everybody that had left. And I didn't. I kind of secluded myself. I'm not really big in everything. I kind of secluded myself. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't. I needed to just kind of get into my cave and try and make a life inside my cave as best as I could. I was an alcoholic. I've tried committing suicide many times. My husband is my angel. I got a soul sister who has rocked my back. But it's hard, and it's hard to try and bring to the public what Morse knew. And I mean, maybe he might not have known everything, but he knew. Morse knew that what Ellen was doing to me. Can you tell us who Morse is? So Morse is Morse Hope. He's passed away. He's not around anymore. So Dudley Boyer and Harry Drever, there was these three men who kind of overturned the main leading gentleman that was in there, and his name was Walter Drever. So he was an older gentleman, very compassionate, very kind. He tried to do what he could do, but these three men came in And they started doing all the priestly visits. They started speaking up more in church. They ended up overthrowing him, and they got in. And they were the people that wreaked havoc on Maple Creek. If I could say the poison in Maple Creek was that combination of those three. And, not a lot of people knew what was going on in our house. There was families that certainly did. But the amount of priestly visits we were getting, I don't think people knew. Like, it was nothing for us to have 2 or 3 priestly visits in a week. And I knew if I was caught, I had a paper out. I knew if I was caught talking to someone outside the church on my paper out, I knew I was counting on a priestly visit that night, and I'd get it. And then they would just sit there for like hours on end, sitting there telling you how awful you are, and like how you're destroying your parents, and you're making your parents sick, and how full of the devil I am. And they just strip you down until there's nothing left of you. So when I first realized that I couldn't do that church anymore, it wasn't to leave. I was leaving home. I was leaving this planet. That option of me running away from home wasn't even there. The only reason it came onto the table was because my mom found my suicide poem. And I had to reroute my plan. And so I kind of befriended the girl that I left with. We became close. She was struggling. I knew she was struggling. I had seen her struggle. And so we became friends, and we left together.
The priestly visit thing it sounds like such a manipulative tool, like some sort of spiritual and moral intervention. And you were getting them like 2 or 3 times a week by people who were shielding your abuser, basically.
Yes, 100%. And if I look back on it now, you have to just kind of piece things together through therapy. And when you're trying to, it's hard to bring this basket out and deal with it. So you take it off in bits and pieces when you can. And each time that you bite bits and pieces off, things start making more sense. So, I mean, when you understand the whole complexity of my story and how it is, and the places he took me, there was drugs involved. And I can say it was drugs because at 47 now I know that that's what it was that it was, and there was just a lot of layers involved. And I questioned my dad's accident at 2.5. Was it an accident? That's my question to my parents. If they ever see this, was it an accident? Really, this is my plea to them right now. It's like, watch this, listen to my bloody story, and then ask yourself if my dad's accident was a freaking accident.
And what was the accident?
It's just, so he fell off a scaffolding building and he almost died. And it was that moment that I got placed in the hands of Ellen. So if I'm going to give just kind of a context to this on what my abuse was kind of like. Okay. So not only yes, he groomed me. I know at my age, and going back and write everything down, I know he groomed me, right? He even used a plastic inch snake on me, and he groomed me. He groomed me. Anyhow, there was places that I was taken to. Yeah.
It's okay.
He took me to, I mentioned the mobile home with what I am assuming were Hutterites. He then took me to this house. I shouldn't say he didn't take me to this house. He took me to some truckers. I'll get to the house later. He took me to some truckers, and he started my grooming with a pencil. So it was this pencil that he kept in his shirt pocket. And that was part of also when he brought out his toolbox, the pencil was there. And so if I can take this into just a little bit fast forward motion, as he started wrapping things around this pencil, and he inserted them into me, and they had a string on them with a little thing on the bottom. And he inserted them into my vagina. And then I was taken to I was taken to 2 specific truckers that I remember. One trucker's name was Jerry. And the night before I was taken to this place, he took a chair and pushed it on my toe and like pushed down on it. He heard it. His wife wrapped my toe up. And that next morning, I was being rushed out. I had to wear the shoes, but my shoe felt super, super, super tight. And I remember crying to my oldest sister, like being like, this really hurts. There's no way I can walk on this. This hurts. And he took me to a trucker that day that took off my shoe and took stuff out of my shoe. Plus took out the stuff out of my own vagina and then read a story to me. And that was, I had to wait for Ellen to come back.
The implication is that you were being muled, right? That you were being sent, like drugs were being placed onto you and inside of you to.
And I'm. You guys can draw your own conclusions on what was stuffed in me, but it was. I mean, what else would have it been, right? So if anybody else has any other ideas of what it was been, then they can change my perception on the whole story.
Did you cross the border?
Sorry, No. I never, the house that I went to that was the farthest away, I don't know how far it was. I just remember it was this really long, bumpy road. But that was with a driver that I ended up taking over me. So the other trucker I was taken to was a much bigger truck. He had, I guess you maybe call it a sleeper in the back. I just remember it was just kind of red, fuzzy stuff around it. That day, I was filled so full, he had taped over top of my vagina. I didn't even have underwear on. And he carried me from his truck to this trucker's truck. And I remember this trucker being very gentle with trying to take the tape off, asking me if it hurt. He took everything out, took the stuff out of my footwear. And the whole time doing this, I could see some pop and chips. And so that's literally all I was fixated on, was like how I could see this pop and chips. And I really wanted this pop and chips. And so he told me that I could have this pop and chips if he let me do whatever I wanted to. He wanted to me. And I did. That's how bad I wanted my pop and chips.
But by that time, you've been groomed.
Oh, I was,
like you said.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it switched to a lady driving me around, and it was a vehicle that was like this burnt orange vehicle with a cream top. And she was really the lady who taught me the rules. She was very, very firm with the rules of no crying. You don't question. The no crying was like very, 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 very huge. It was over and over and over. And again, she really put in there the importance of doing this for my dad and the amount of people that I was helping out by doing this. The thing that I remember with her is she must have put a bottle of perfume on every time before she got into that vehicle. It hurt my throat. It hurt my nose. It was, to this day, I cannot wear perfume. Like anything fragrance, I cannot. It's perfume just does me in. But her perfume was horrible. And she took me to different places. One of the places she took me to was another mobile home, and this was in Maple Creek. It was a bluey green mobile home. I had to wear a backpack, and I was. On the way, she had kind of prepped me with about being brave, that I had to go into this place by myself, and that I needed to be brave. You can be brave, right? The brave was her biggest word that she used on this one occasion. And normally she didn't get out and stand by the car and watch me walk in. Normally people came out and met me and took me. This one, I had to walk in by myself. And this mobile home, I remember walking by, and it had really tall grass. I remember it like rubbing against my leg. There was a pedal bike that was kind of leaned over to the side. I walked up these stairs and kind of went to the right a little bit and then to the doorway. And I was met by two men, two very kind of heavyset men. it was a different one in there. It was very different there. They kind of they took the backpack. They made me sit on the couch, and I had to sit a certain way. My underwear had to come off, and they had pasted something on my vagina at that point in time. They had a dog, and the dog was tall enough to rest his head on, and he was very interested in me. But while I was sitting on this, they were in the kitchen that was off to the left of me, and they were taking the stuff out of the backpack. And the one thing I remember coming out of this backpack was a stack of cash. And I was like, for me, I had never seen cash like that before. Ever I'd never had seen cash like that. I mean, we were a very poor family. The Brethren didn't help us out like they helped other families out. We were on our own. And then they proceeded to use this cash. This is so hard. I know you guys need to hear it. Just take a second.
You can take it.
They rolled this cash up, and they inserted it into me and started taking pictures.
Oh my God.
And then they would show me the picture that they took. So I'm guessing it was a Polaroid. I mean, this is how many years ago? I don't think there was any other cameras but they would show me what they were doing with these pictures that they were taking. I was there for a lengthy time of many, many different kinds of pictures. They never raped me. They for them, this was all pictures. This was pictures. This was pictures of them naked with me. Pictures of their dog doing stuff. They were all about the pictures. Yeah,
It's heinous, obviously. It's interesting to me that when you just say that they didn't rape you, because I listened to that and I just think that it is rape, and I understand what you meant. I understand, exactly what you mean. But listening to that, and I'm sure people listening to this are, first of all, actually, let's prioritize it. I know that everybody watching this is like, holy shit, this woman is brave. So I need you to know that. I need you to and I've told you this before.
And I don't, I know, and I don't feel brave. I feel like I have to do this. I probably wouldn't have done this. I literally half hour before this, I wanted to back out.
Yeah.
And I just think of my nieces, and I think of all the people that, maybe it wasn't as graphic as what has happened to me. Maybe it was. I just want those people to understand that this has to fucking stop. And I'm saying that so from the core of my freaking being, that this has to fucking stop. 4 years ago was a lady who came forward to me. This has to stop. It just has to stop. And the only way it stops is by everybody coming together. I don't care what way, but everybody needs to come together. And this man needs help. These men, people, they need help. I don't get into this about I'm here to shut down the Plymouth Brethren Christian. It's not that. I just want people safe. I want my nieces and nephews safe. I want my parents safe. I want the other survivors to feel safe enough to say, holy shit, if she can come out and say what she's saying, then maybe I can. And I know those people know who I'm talking about. There's people who have come forward that I know need to come forward. And
since when we first started talking weeks ago, nobody had really come forward. No one had filled out a police report. You hadn't found anybody else at that point in time who had been victimized by this person. We started talking. I did when I was really younger. I did. Oh, okay.
So when I had left, there was somebody who came forward to me. It was a man who came forward to me. I'm very close with. He came forward. So I was living over my mobile home. So we were in Red Deer. So it was quite a few years ago. And we were just sitting on the having a talk, and he mentioned Ellen Drever, and I just said, me too. And we never really went much more for it. I think it was a lot of silence. And I think that silence spoke a lot for the both of us.
Yeah.
But other than him, no.
But what you've accomplished, in my eyes, since I started talking to you, has been just fucking amazing. When we started talking, you told me your story, and I was floored, of course, and completely horrified of what you experienced. But since then, you have found 2 other people who are going to fill out police reports. You filed your own police report. You know, you were able to just show a kind of bravery that I think a lot of people are hearing right now. And I know you don't want to be called brave, and I get that. Like, there's a strange thing that happens to people that are in your position that I've seen many, many times before. I've had personal experience with other people that I know that have done what you've done. And they don't want to focus on bravery at all. There is a very hardcore sense of like humility when it comes to what you're doing, because you and I have spoken about this in the last few days about how one of the greatest things that could come out of all this is to what you just said, is to find others that could come forward and stop being victimized. I find it interesting and maybe even a little sad that you don't have anything against the church, because as I'm listening to this, all I want to do is destroy that church.
I know, but I've had like a lot of therapy. Like you have to understand how much therapy that I've had to go through to come to a place of it, because it ate me alive. It ate me alive. The rage. I mean, I'm still I get full of rage. Absolutely. At the hypocrisy, at the injustice. Absolutely. But I also understand that religion is not going to go anywhere, right? Like, it's not going to go anywhere. And so, I mean, my biggest loftiest dream is to make this plea to the people that are in this church to say, like, come on, just like, I don't give a shit what you do with this stuff. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to find a way to heal myself. But get this man some help. Like, to me, it's just like how can you? I didn't know they're not going to believe my story. I'm like, thank God I have a soul sister who's like very much held my hand in that process of like, I know they're not, this is going to be deny. I get that. But while they're watching this, because they'll watch this, I challenge you. I freaking challenge you. I challenge you to be able to be a bloody Christian and get this man some help.
That's interesting that you say help. You want him to get. You want him to that. See, that to me is amazing.
Like, that's the thing is how. Like, I've been sitting with this for weeks. I mean, I don't sleep. Yeah. I'm like sitting there like, this is a worldwide problem. We can't just lock these bastards up as much as we want to, because they get out and they just go back to it. These people need help. We need to have a system that literally takes these people and puts them through some freaking kind of rehab, because they're sick. Ellen's sick. Like, I can't even, I hope you guys can feel to the core of you when I say he was a sick man. Yeah. I'm going to tell you how sick he was. So not every time that he brought that, can I take that picture down? Sorry. It's just
Which
like
picture?
Literally.
Oh, is it stuck?
I have the picture of me. Yeah. Stuck on
that happens sometimes, but is
okay.
It down now?
I had to, I'm like,
sorry, you were the only one that saw
okay.
that. Sometimes a guest will see a picture that will stay up, but it wasn't really up for anyone else. Okay,
it was staying up, and I was like, I couldn't look at my little girl anymore.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, no worries at all. So when he brought this tool, so there was different parts of him when he brought this toolbox out. He was on a mission. So when he brought this toolbox out, and if he came in and I just knew that, this is a day, this is work, we're We're working. We're working. And then there was other times he'd come in and he wasn't even himself. He wasn't even him, but he was him. And he would sit at the foot of the bed, pull me down, and he would talk to himself. He would like laugh. But not to me. It was like he was in his own little world, and I was his playbox. I was his sandbox. I was his toy. And so that happened like about 3 times that just like really shocked me. It scared me because here's this man at the end and he's like just not being, I mean, not that I wanted him to be the other one because that was, I mean, very painful, right? But he was sick. He was super sick. And like, I have empathy towards not him, but I have empathy towards somebody who is as sick as that lives on a planet, and we're in a justice system that doesn't look at what perpetrators and what these people really need, right? Yes, okay, so we put them behind bars, but get that they need help. They need help so that when they come out of there, they can be reintroduced into society that literally are knowing. But now I'm stuck up against, I'm in this cult and I'm up against this cult, and I'm calling it a cult because I believe it was a cult. I don't care what everybody else thinks.
Oh, it's a cult.
I believe it was a cult. I know it was a cult. So now I'm up against having to try and tell my story in a judicial system that doesn't even give what I want to happen, and up against a cult that is going to be like, this lady's crazy. That never happened. This is bullshit. Like this is just deny, right? So when this stuff would bubble up, I would have to look at it, kind of hold it in my hand, look out at the world and be like, can I do it? No, I can't. Stuff it back down again. Right?
Yeah.
So honestly, the first thing that happened was the Breaking Brethren documentary that came out. When that came out, I was in a heat of an episode, in a heat of all this resurfacing. And I contacted Christine Heggie, and I asked her, I said, has anybody come forward since the documentary regarding sexual abuse and kind of more of a complex sexual abuse? Has anybody come forward? And no, nobody had come forward. So I kind of just sat back. I had re-entered therapy again and thought, like, I'm going to have to just deal with this again on my own, right? Until, the stuff with, the KLondike Papers came forward, and I was like, holy crap. I contacted Richard Marsh, and I contacted him, and I knew that this door was opening for me, and I just had to find a way to put my heart in a cast, to put my mind in a cast, ungag myself, and be like, whatever happens, happens. Got my cameras working around my house, met with the police again today. I was there for 4 hours. I'm there again tomorrow. It's just, I can't give my energy into, would I want the Plymouth Brethren Church to have the charity status removed? Absolutely. Absolutely, 110%. They are not a charity. They should not have a charity status, right? If they cannot have an open mind and allow someone to come forward with their story and be like, okay, let's just hear this, and maybe this happened. Like, to even be open to that idea. I contacted my parents over 10 years ago about this, and nothing was done about it. Nothing was done. I was on the phone call with both my mom and dad, and it was either one brother or two brothers, but I know a brother was on there. And I was just a little tidbit of it, right? I had to test the waters. I remember getting off that phone call, and I threw my house phone. I threw it clear across down the stairs. I was done. I was so done, because I've been waiting for a moment to bring the worst hurt that I endured in there out to somebody or something. And back in March, I contacted a sibling, right? I contacted her for help, right? I mean, what do? We reach out to those people that were a part of that time, right? And that was in March. I got an email back that she had to digest the letter I gave her, and I've never heard back. So I'm not only digesting this grief of loss of family again, it's trying to stand up and be a voice after I heard this story of this girl that it just happened to 4 years ago. Be able to stand up and find this voice and try and find a way to communicate it to you guys in a digestible manner, that people can understand the intensity and what we're actually up against with this cult, right?
Yeah,
we can't just walk in and be like, hey, you need to, the magnitude, absolutely, right?
I think
I was taking
can I tell you something? Can I just, because the two things that stand out for me, and I don't want to repeat myself too much here, but and we don't have to delve into it at all, but just as a bullet point thing that I'm both impressed with and maybe even a little bit like kind of confused by is the unwillingness that you have to want to say, I want to destroy the church, and the unwillingness that you have to be like, I just want to kill this guy. You want people like him to get help, and you don't want to destroy this church. I find that remarkable. I think that's a testament to your strength. So it's confusing to me because as a dad and a brother, I'd be in jail. And I know that that's not the right answer. That's the emotional, angry response. That's the primal reptilian response.
It's the human response.
Right.
Yeah, it's the human response. And my husband's right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna stop the show in the next 5 minutes because what I think that you've done tonight has already been accomplished. And I don't need you to, unless you want to continue, because I just think that, first of all, the details are, you don't need to go into any more of those details, because I think that you've shared so much. You've had such a long day. Again, you were at the police station filing that report today for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. That is taxing, mm-hmm. And is there anything else that you want to say? Maybe even like a direct appeal to people that are in the church?
So, well, first of all, I just want to overview that. I do want to make a plea because there was a Down syndrome boy that was involved in this. So there's two things that I don't know if you had that picture of that car, but there's a car that I'm looking for. There's a car that this lady driver drove me around in. There's also a Down syndrome boy that I was met when I was taken to this Quonset. There was a whole other story that happened there. My heart broke for this Down syndrome boy. And he was a part of a house that was taken down. It was down this really bumpy road for quite a while, and we were videoed. And so I need to understand too, like, yeah. So it's a car it looks similar to this. It's like a burnt orange, and the passenger door handle stuck. If someone found me this car, I could tell you how to open it. But yeah, so that car was the car that took me to the multiple places that I was taken to. The Down syndrome boy had it's very like strawberry gingery hair. He was very fair haired. He would have been 4 or 5 years older than me. There's not a whole lot of it's a small town. It's a small town. So I just hope somebody can find this Down syndrome boy, and that he's still my heart still breaks for him. So he was brought into some of the places with me. My plea to, I guess, first and foremost is I really, really, really hope that Some of these survivors can come forward. I am not the only one. I am by far not the only one. I know it's hard. I know it's super, super hard. We need to start collecting these stories. If you're not willing to talk about them, you can most definitely, I've got an email set up for them. I've talked to the police about this. We need to start collecting the stories, and the time is now, right? We had Me Too movement happen whenever. This is the Me Too movement of the PBCC, and it has to happen now. It has to start. I understand some of you have family still in there. That is why you should be doing this, right? You cannot be afraid of what it would do to them. My heart is broken for what this is going to do to my parents. Even sitting at the police station today before I'd gone in, I was in tears. My heart is just broken for them, right? Because they're going to believe that I am evil. They're going to believe that this is a vendetta against the church. They're going to believe that this is Cheryl just being full of the devil again. And I think the biggest thing that I want to tell all the survivors that are out there, especially in Canada, is where we're focusing on, is these stories have to come forward. And James will share. There's an email that's set up that we can share at the end. Mm-hmm. My plea to the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. I don't hate you. I don't, because did I? Oh yes, I did. I did hate you. I did. I don't hate you. If you want to have your church, have it. But you need to clean the mess up. You've got to take these stories and be open to listening that this shit actually happened, because it actually happened.
Yeah.
I lived it to the core.
What is that email? You set it up, right? It was a Proton email, wasn't it?
I did. It was
I'm going to share it in our chat system, and we can speak it up or say it out loud. Obviously, I don't have a graphic or anything for it because I don't know it yet. But
I just started up. So it's Cheryl Hope, but it's capital C, capital H at proton.me.
Oh, Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl Hope at proton.me.
Proton.me, and it's a capital C and a capital H.
Like that. In chat. Oh, I can't do it in chat. Hold on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. Is that right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. That's
okay.
It.
So you see Cheryl's email, Cheryl Hope at proton.me. I'm not sure if the uppercase or lowercase matters in that email, but either way, it's
I don't know,
capital C,
but
capital H.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there, or even if they want to share a story and they're not part of the church, right? Like it's
yes, exactly. This lady that came forward that was just 4 years ago, she wasn't even a part of it. Like she wasn't a part of it, but she was working for them. And so, and it still was Ellen, and his son was involved. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess my heart's just going out to the other survivors, and I hope you feel me. Feel free to contact me. I really want to get the ball rolling on this. I think our moment is now. I think we have a lot of eyes on the some of the things that are happening within the church, and the only reason why I say I want the charity status gone is because they don't deserve it. So clean up your church, and you can deserve it again, but you don't deserve it right now.
Yeah, you're so much nicer than I am.
Really and you know what? I wasn't always like this. Trust me, I was not always like this. I wasn't always like this. But I've just kind of gotten to the point of we have to find a way to fix this. So you kind of got to lose the noise and kind of hone in on how do you fix this problem? Because it's not being fixed. It's not being fixed outside the church. It's not being fixed inside the church. We have a judicial system that is not supportive of a lot of the whole start to finish of doing this.
Right.
So I'm that way because I have exhausted my gas tanks on the other one.
Well, I think you're a remarkable woman. I think I'm a better person just for knowing you. We'll talk. I'll probably call you tonight, to let you know how well you did. But thank you so much. I know that wasn't easy. I know you've had a very, very tough day.
Yeah, it was a rough day.
I basically at this point consider you a friend because I feel like I know
me
so
too.
much about
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've this is a journey that is your journey. I am privileged to be a small part of it, and thank you again. So that's Cheryl Hope. Again, her email is cherylhope@proton.me. That's cherylhope@proton.me. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Soon. No problem. Thank you. Wow. What do you say? There is I don't believe in hell, so I can't even say there's a place in hell for many of the people that she was talking about. What a remarkable example of strength. She doesn't want the church to be gone. She wants the man that abused her to get help. And most people watching this podcast were like, burn that shit to the ground and string that man up. And it's funny because I said that out loud just now, and I felt that sort of tinge of like, don't be fucking like that. But, because she ultimately, I think, is correct in her assessment of, the emotional and the anger is probably very taxing, especially for someone in her position. The cult expert that we were going to have tonight, Dr. Lalick, couldn't make it. Not that this podcast should even go to the place of levity, but she was walking her dog and got attacked by a wild turkey. I shouldn't be laughing, but she's okay. She has some scrapes and bumps and bruises, but that's why she couldn't be on tonight. I hope I didn't share any confidential information, but when I got that email, I was like, that is the best reason not to come on a podcast. The ramifications of this podcast are unknown. My hope is that more people will come forward. My hope is that Cheryl has found a way to inspire other survivors to leave that cult, who I agree with Cheryl that they should have their charitable status taken away. But the reason why I think that is because I think that church should not be considered a church at all. I think it's a cult. And if I don't get off this podcast right now, I'm going to say things out of anger, or I'm going to start tearing up because what we heard tonight was heinous and disgusting. But what superseded that, what we should put well above that heinousness and that disgust is the absolute bravery of this person. And so, Cheryl Hope, this is you've inspired a lot of people. Tomorrow we have Richard Marsh on the show. Richard is going to fill us in on the other sexual abuse cases that the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church has been involved with, documented things that have made the media, court cases and all that kind of stuff in the UK, in Australia and New Zealand. This is not an isolated incident with this church. This church is not a church. It's a cult. I think it needs to be stopped, personally. And so we'll see you tomorrow on Blackballed. And again, thank you, Cheryl.
Blackmore, 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 Black.